Hi there, and welcome to a special episode. This is a message of hope that we'll share here from Richard. And it's always special when we can share this, a message from someone who's struggled for quite a long time. Actually, Richard struggled for 40 years and is now doing so much better. And it's kind of extra special for me personally because Richard, I think, found this YouTube channel some like 2 years ago or something, like early on, sent a couple of questions, went on to do a CBT course. And, for a long period of time, things didn't really change for Richard. It was kind of the same. But I think when I started discovering Brooke Castillo and the model, and I started kind of changing my teaching, going from a more traditional CBT towards like more like mindfulness and self-compassion and going deeper into education, that's where things changed. And the reason it's so special for me is that Richard, he didn't give up. He still was part of the community, still tuned in, although the teaching in the beginning wasn't really that helpful for him. So it's kind of extra special for me when somebody who believed in me now sees good things coming their way. So I was so happy to read this message, actually, that we're going to go over in a second. So with that said, yeah, let's jump right in here and take a look at one message from it, which is from September in 2020. And that is just kind of to give you an idea of what was going on there. And mind you, this is when Richard already actually is doing better and has learned quite a bit. But still, we can learn a lot from that message as we compare to the more recent one. So let's read this. September 2020, Richard says, "Hi, Daniel. I've had insomnia for decades, starting in college when I was up at night. My problem for the past couple of years has been early awakening. My sleep window for some time has been 11 p.m. to 5:30 a.m. I usually fall asleep within 10 to 15 minutes, but almost always wake up 1 to 1.5 hours before my intended wake-up time of 5:30 a.m. I usually get up by 5:30 or earlier, so I average 5 to 5.5 hours of sleep. Sleep quality, usually so-so. I'm usually tired during the day. I found through experience that if I can sleep 6 to 6.5 hours, I feel more rested and do better during the day. I've been taking sleeping pills and supplements, ALAS, for years and realized that this lowers my sleep confidence because part of me thinks I can't sleep without them. I'm currently taking Lunesta, 3 milligrams, CBD, 12 milligrams, Flexeril, 1.25 milligrams, plus 3 over-the-counter supplements, revitalizing sleep, magnesium, and Doc Parsley's sleep remedy. I want to make a major effort to get off these pills for good. I've tried to do this many times in the past, but my sleep usually gets worse. I know to expect rebound insomnia from stopping pills, but in the past, the rebound insomnia usually persisted for 3 to 4 weeks, even with gradual tapering, and I've gotten discouraged and gone back to the pills. Any suggestions on a good strategy?" One more question. "Do you think my sleep meds could actually be partly responsible for my early awakening? I know that when people drink alcohol in the evening, they fall asleep, but then typically get agitated later on due to the dropping alcohol levels, withdrawal in the early morning. I don't drink alcohol, but do you think sleep medications could have a similar effect, waking me up at 4:30 every morning because the blood levels of those meds are dropping and I'm going through a mini withdrawal every morning, analogous to alcohol?" I appreciate all the wonderful work you do, Daniel. I appreciate you very much, of course, Richard. And this is an older message, but I just had to say that. And so, what we can learn here, what we can see here is that, Richard was, paying a lot of attention to exactly what time he went to bed. He was taking many medications, and he was paying a lot of attention to the exact number of milligrams, and he was thinking a lot about why this and that was happening, which is very typical, of course. But compared to May 2021, and now we'll learn how Richard is doing now, and what hopefully you can learn from this as well. Okay, Richard says, "Hi, Daniel. It's been a while since we emailed, but I wanted to let you know that I think I'm making real progress. I had an amazing breakthrough earlier this year when I finally got the natto mindset. After all your videos on natto, plus reading your natto book, I stumbled upon a way that I could easily shift into the natto perspective. I found that when I was attached to sleep, I could let go of this worry simply by saying, 'Oh well,' along with a little shrug and a smile. Then the worry and preoccupation would go away, and I'd find myself not caring about the issue of sleep. I had found natto, and I realized that the key to making this shift seemed to be the slight physical element of the gesture. It was the little shrug and smile that seemed to make all the difference for me. Now, when I'm going to bed and start to worry about whether I'll sleep, I'll just give a little shrug, a little smile, and say, oh well, or no biggie, and the worry just disappears. If I wake up early or in the middle of the night, I do the same thing again, and the worry disappears. This amazing natto mindset has finally clicked in and is second nature to me now. Now, this is, of course, super nice to read, but we have to contextualize this because it can be confusing. So if somebody hears this and says, okay, this is it, I'm going to shrug and smile like Richard does, well, there's nothing magical about a shrug or a smile. What is magical is that for Richard, this sort of just like reactivates, reminds him of everything that he's learned and experienced. And that is, of course, like learning all the things we talk about here, like, that sleeping a certain amount shouldn't be a goal, that not knowing what time it is helpful, that letting go is helpful. And, so there's no shortcut to that. You can't simply shrug and magically sleep or be worry-free. But, and this is what I think Richard has discovered here, you can find ways to sort of remind yourself of everything you learned, kind of reactivate those, those new thought patterns that have formed over some time of learning and being courageous, etc. So, and this is helpful for even for Richard. If you kind of shrug at one time and you still don't feel less worried, nothing strange. It's just like, okay, there's a little bit more fear that time. But overall, I was super glad to hear this, and of course, that little shrug can just remind you of everything you've learned. Okay, so let's go on. When I first discovered this, I had not made it a habit yet, and I'd forget about it for several nights in a row. I reminded myself that the important thing was to shrug and then to let that, and that led to an unusual idea. I got out my copy of Atlas Shrugged, which happens to be my favorite novel of all time. I know some people don't particularly love that, but this is just about sleep, okay? And I put a little sticky with my name on it and over the word Atlas, so it read Richard Shrugged. And this silly reminder really worked for me. I kept it on my night table for a couple months, and every time I went to bed, I got up, saw it. It reminded me to go natto, shrug, smile, and not make a big deal out of sleep. I don't need it to be on the table anymore, but it was an effective temporary crutch to change my mental habits. Again, amazing way of like just reminding yourself of everything you learned here. Another way I remind myself to shift to a more natto mindset is a little rhyme I made up. I realized that I had a habit of complaining and whining to myself and being hard on myself around my struggle with insomnia. So I came up with this little rhyme to shift out of this negative place into a positive place. Don't bitch and whine, unhitch and shine. Unhitch, of course, refers to letting go and not being attached to the outcome. And shine for me encapsulates self-kindness, engaging with life, pursuing values, and doing fun and enjoyable things. It's a very effective little rhyme. I think this encapsulates something that is so important. One thing that it took a while for me to see the importance of self-compassion, self-kindness, but because it can initially seem kind of like impractical. Like, what do you mean being kind to myself? No, that I want something more tangible, something to do. But as you can see with Richard here, I think what keeps you stuck for such a long time is being like, I'm always tired and grumpy. Why am I always tired? Why am I so this? Why am I not this? Why can't I be better? That is being hard on yourself, and that keeps you stuck. And Richard found a way to just remind himself, like, being kind to yourself is so helpful. So again, maybe this will be helpful to you to remind yourself about this. Don't bitch and whine, unhitch and shine. I love this one. All right. I found that both the shine rhyme and the shrug associated with the Richard Shrug are useful for all kinds of conflicts and worries outside of sleep. If I'm worried about taxes or COVID or crazy politicians, it's often amazingly helpful to remind myself to shrug and to accept the rhyme. And yeah, just to stay for a second longer on this one, it's that this has become increasingly exciting to me, and something that really makes me happy is to see how when you learn about sleep, it's really about learning about yourself, which applies to every aspect of life, and that's so amazing because when you learn about yourself in the context of sleep, you see how when you become less attached, when you unhitch, like Richard says, sleep happens easier. Is kind of like this proof of concept that, okay, letting go is really helpful. And you can see that in maybe a more obvious way than in other aspects of life. So sleep can be a real, insomnia can really be something that teaches you so much about yourself that you then can apply to any aspect of life, like Richard does here. Amazing to read this made me really happy also. Like so much else in this message. Let's keep reading. Another key event in my sleep journey was a trip to Hawaii this winter. As soon as we got there, I felt very relaxed and I slept much better. If it wasn't clear to me before this, it became crystal clear at that moment that my insomnia is indeed due to hyperarousal and anxiety. And that when these get better, so does my sleep. I now know on a gut level that I'm capable of letting go hyperarousal and anxiety, and that I don't have to physically go to Hawaii to do so. Anxiety and hyperarousal are not my destiny. They've been gradually improving over the past few months, and I'm confident they'll continue to do so. Like two things that are so important here are, number one, no matter how many times I teach that insomnia comes from anxiety, insomnia comes from hyperarousal, it can take an experience like that to fully see it. But that doesn't mean you need to go to Hawaii. It just means that whenever you sleep a little better, that just take note of the fact that this was because of you were trying less to sleep, you were less hyperaroused, you were less stressful, you were less stressed. And just seeing that can be so helpful, because you see like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing physically wrong with me. It's just some anxiety there. That seeing that can be so helpful, because so much of the worry that there's something wrong with you like goes away when that happens. And the second thing here is, and this can be so confusing for a lot of people who hear this, like, oh, Richard was able to let go of his anxiety and let go, right? He knows how to do that. How does he do that? How can I do that? I want to let go just like Richard does. But the key thing there is to see that actually Richard cannot turn it on or turn it off, but he's learned so much that it's become second nature for him to think of hyperarousal and anxiety as something that's okay, acceptable, normal. And actually, by just reminding himself of this, he's actually not trying to stop the hyperarousal anxiety. He's sort of letting it be. And that is when he says he can have less hyperarousal. Is kind of letting, this can be so confusing. Letting the hyperarousal be there is how it fades away and becomes fleeting. So it's not like Richard can do something. He can let it be, and then magic happens. So this is also, all this was making me so happy when I read it. Another thing that I'm much more clearly aware of now is that physical symptoms I sometimes have are due to my hyperarousal anxiety and struggle around sleep. This is big. For the past few years, I've had problems on and off with muscle aching, tingling, shortness of breath. I know that none of these symptoms are due to any physical pathology, because they go away when I'm relaxed, like in Hawaii. I used to worry about the symptoms having a physical origin, and it's very reassuring to clearly know that they are really psychosomatic. Another unusual symptom I've had on rare occasions is soreness of sensitive areas on my body, mainly my eyes and lips. These very symptoms can happen anytime, but they seem to happen more when I'm battling insomnia or anxiety, or trying to wean off meds like sleeping pills too quickly. Last year, when I tried to reduce my Lunesta dose too quickly, my lips were so sore that I couldn't kiss my girlfriend for a week. When I went back to just a little below my prior dose and continued weaning more gradually, these symptoms went away. And Richard isn't saying this directly, but what I read from this is that Richard saw that a lot of things actually were related to like his state of mind, like hyperarousal. And he came off Lunesta quickly, made him more hyperaroused, more anxious, and then he had more of this tingling. And although he knew this, he went the path of saying like, okay, let me go back on Lunesta and take it more gradually. Works great. I used to take Lunesta 3 milligrams every night, but I've been cutting back over the past several months, and I'm now down to 1 milligram. For a while, I was hard on myself for weaning so slowly, but now I cut myself slack, and I'm kind to myself about it. I found that if I wean too quickly, my physical symptoms are triggered. I realized that my attachment to the pills may be more psychological than physical, but I just decided to go slowly, and this is working for me. I'm confident I'll be off the Lunesta in another couple of months. Then I'll wean off the CBD. Now, because of my natto mindset, I'm confident I'll be able to sleep without medication. I already feel much better on lower doses of medication because I'm no longer feeling hung over in the morning. And you see here how, we're talking about medications again, but as opposed to the message from September, no dosages, no like this hour, like there's just an overall understanding that leads to a lack of interest in details, which was I was so glad to read that. I know I've been subscribed to your BedTyme program for several months now without contacting you, but the reason is that the material in your videos and the natto book is so good that I haven't needed to. I've been following your channel for a couple of years, And I love the evolution of your thinking on sleep. You started out doing more traditional CBT-I, and I think the evolution of your thinking has been wonderful and amazing. You've helped so many people who struggle with insomnia, myself included, of course. Yeah, I was super glad to read this, because I kind of feel the same myself, that the evolution has been very important, and that's been thanks to people like you, Richard, and everyone else in the community that have kept like asking questions, pointing me in the right direction, etc. I'm still not there yet with my sleep. It's been gradually improving, but it still varies a lot. But I expect ups and downs. Since I've struggled with insomnia for over 40 years, I now realize that the reason I've struggled so long is that before the education I got from you, I never really understood what was going on and what I needed to do, or rather not do, to feel better. But now that I've healed my attitude about sleep, I'm in a very different place than I've ever been with regards to insomnia. And I'm totally confident that this healthy mindset will continue to trickle down to better sleep. I'm even toying with the idea of taking your course to become a sleep coach one day. You would be a wonderful sleep coach with all your insight, Richard. I can't think of anything else I need to ask at this point. I'll be ending BedTyme subscription because I don't feel I need it. If questions come up, I'll certainly contact you. But with the wealth of information you have in your channel and your books, I feel I have all I need. Thank you, Dan, for the wonderful work helping me and all the people out there who struggle with sleep. All the best, Richard. Thank you so much, Richard, for allowing me to share this. And I guess just a few words here is that oftentimes I have clients who, like Richard, say, my sleep is still kind of going up and down, and that is of no concern whatsoever for me when you have this understanding and when you are okay with things going up and down. Like Richard said, I expect things to be up and down. And when you expect that, then if you have kind of like a stretch of sleeping little, you won't really respond to it. You expected that anyway. And when I hear that, I always know this client is going to do really well, just like Richard will. So I want to say again, thanks so much, Richard, for being willing to share this. I know this has brought a lot of value to the community. And if anybody has thoughts, questions, comments, then please leave them here. And with that said, we actually have 2 more really nice stories coming up this week, similar to Richard's. So it's going to be a week with a lot of hope. So I'm super excited about that, and super excited about having you back here real soon. Until then, take it easy.